Hello and welcome back to Wreck and Roll. This is Brian talking to you today. Today I want to hit you guys up with a deck profile of something that I've been playing the past couple of weeks. It is a ton of fun. It's got some jank to it. I think you guys will enjoy it. On top of that, I'm going to give you guys not only the main deck, I'm going to also give you the sideboard options I've been using. I'm going to also throw at you guys a few other possibilities that you could throw in to kind of make it a little bit more your style. So without any further ado, let's get into it. One of the strongest characters from Wave 3 is of course General Optimus Prime. He made a little bit of a splash before Gen Con, but he made a bigger splash at Gen Con. You guys saw Jamie from Powered by Primus using him with, I believe it was Wheeljack and Flame War, if I'm not mistaken, into the event on Saturday, the top 32. And then you also saw Scott Landis of Vector Sigma also using Optimus Prime, partnered with Barrage and with Fire Drive. Both of those decks, very strong, obviously, had more of an orange slant to them. Now, of course, I want to be a contrarian, and, you know, as of recording this at this moment, like, people have been kind of harping on the fact that, like, orange decks are very strong right now, which they generally are at the start of a, new set. But people think that they're possibly a little bit overpowered. So I wanted to go with a heavy blue slant and see what I could do with that. See if I could make it work. Now, of course, what makes Optimus so good is that while he's in truck mode, he gives all of his teammates Bold 1 and Tough 1. And then while he is in bot mode, he gives himself Bold 1 and Tough 1. He also has Focus 1. So the part that's great about this is you can go with a mixed pip deck. So if you're going with orange, you can throw a decent amount of blue in there. If you're going blue, decent amount of orange. And then your partners are flipping, extra cards. They can hopefully get to what they want to see. And then while he is in bot mode, he himself can filter cards for himself to make things work out. So I wanted to go with a heavy blue deck. So I wanted to go with characters that had built-in tough so that I could stack in the Optimus tough as well. I began by looking at Bumblebee. I was doing some stuff like the middle of Wave 2 with Springer, Bee, and Hot Rod, trying to just stack up tough, make them survivable, and then kind of outlast and then just pierce the damage back into the enemy. And B was one of the things I used to help me with that. B, of course, in bot mode, he's got that built-in tough 1. 2 defense is, about average, but it's, better than 1. And on top of that, he's also a leader. So he can take the Matrix, so can Prime. When you flip into this mode, Pierce 1 will sometimes be relevant, so it's a good option. Then from here, I began to struggle what to do with my last 8 points. We got 11 here, we got 6 here. 8 points left to go. I thought maybe about the Sentinel Hot Rod for 7 points, but decided not to go that route, even though there's a strong benefit to him in that he doesn't ever have to flip. He gets the tough one off the bat. I wanted to go a little bit jankier, so I decided to go with the Wave 3 version of Arcee. So Arcee is also a car, so my other benefit here is that I've got 2 characters that I could untap with the special car cards. The other benefit is while she is in bot mode, if she has a weapon, she gets Bold 1 and Tough 1. And then obviously stacked up with Optimus will give her Bold 2 and Tough 2 if he's in this mode. Couple other quick things to note here is that we've got 2 cars. We can access start your engines, can access turbo boosters, but they're also both melee, so that could possibly be important, and they've got that in both their modes. Something I need to remember about Arcee, because she is sometimes targeted by the enemy first, is that she has Focus 1 while in car mode, which she won't be in often, but she's, while she's vulnerable at the start of the game, she will be. You can try to filter your hand a little bit to make sure you get some blue pips out there when you defend. Optimus is also melee while he's in this mode, but while he is in bot mode, he is ranged. Before I get too deep into the deck, general kind of sequencing here is if you are the first player, you will typically want to flip B to bot mode. He's got tough 1, and then stacked up with Prime, he's got tough 2 built into him. Send him out to attack. Generally, you want to send him to somebody that you're hoping he can push damage onto. There is some orange in the deck, but you're not going to see it that often. And he, other than Optimus Bold 1, he's not going to flip a ton of cards. So you're hoping to basically either A, have him be a stumbling block so you can build these 2 up, or B, that he just kind of like sneaks some damage out there. Maybe you're against an orange deck, whatever it might be. They flip ed, something. From there, as long as I have a weapon in hand, I like to then flip Arcee, give her a weapon, which activates her Bold 1 and Tough 1, send her out there, and then Optimus will also buff her up. And then final character to send out is Optimus. If I don't need to, like if he can get a kill on somebody with this, 4 attack, and then maybe he has a weapon to buff him up to maybe 6 attack, if I'm pretty sure he can get the kill, then I'll keep him in this mode, especially if I can throw an armor onto him so that I now have everybody in these modes here having tough. If not, like Optimus will probably be our end game character. I want him to be in this mode. This way, if they choose to attack him, he's going to be a little bit more, he's going to have some more access to defense. If your opponent goes first, they kind of have some difficult choices here. If they go for B, great. He's kind of our stumbling block anyway. We want to keep these 2 alive as long as possible because they can tank a lot of damage in the end game, and they can deal out a decent amount of damage too. So if they go for B, that's fine. Usually they won't kill him. Now, with that said, I did have a couple of unlucky games yesterday where they managed to swing out crazy damage. They got B on the first activation. I still managed to win one of those games, though, so it doesn't make the game impossible. If they go for Arcee, she's also a little bit more vulnerable. She only has 1 defense, and putting damage on her can kind of pressure you into not sending her out right away. Don't forget the focus. I keep forgetting it when they attack Arcee, but it can help you maybe fish for double blue, or if you get one of the few oranges in there, get rid of it so you actually defend with a blue. Sometimes they go for Prime, and if they have a heavy orange character, that could be a little bit rough because he does not have built-in tough in this mode that he begins in. The 3 defense does help, though. But again, there's a little bit of orange in the deck, so if you have an unlucky defense flip early on, you might have Prime taking like 6 damage off the bat, which is not a great start. With that said, let's kind of get into the cards that we have in the battle deck. So, as I said before, we are running a heavy blue team, so we're going to begin by taking 3 copies of Handheld. Now, in most blue character lineups, this is essentially a dead card if it's in your hand. However, in this team, not necessarily. We have enough orange that if Optimus is your last character and your hand is absolutely terrible, it doesn't hurt to go up to Bowl 2 on Optimus, especially because you've got the Focus 1, you're filtering, trying to find some oranges to help you on the attack. But even better than that is actually on Arcee. Again, sorry, losing my voice a little bit. If you have that crappy hand, it's a weapon. When she has a weapon, it gives her Bold 1 and Tough 1. So if you have no other good options, throw it onto Arcee. It'll activate, make her more, a little bit tankier if she gets attacked back. So Handheld, not a dead card. Next thing that we have here is we're going to have 2 copies of Ion Blaster of Optimus Prime. Fantastic, but it can only go on Prime. So a few things to note here is, again, if you're facing an orange deck, having Prime at 6 attack is pretty good. So again, you're generally going to save him as the last character that's going to go out there. And the problem is, most likely these 2 guys have taken some damage. Sorry, camera, focus. You may or may not want to flip Prime, because if you do, they become more vulnerable. So if you're facing an orange deck, that 6 attack on Prime might be enough. And on top of that, you've got him at 4 defense. So again, it helps him because he himself is vulnerable while he's a truck. On the flip side, though, while he's in bot mode, he goes up to 8 attack, which is great. And then he goes back to 3 defense, which again is good. So you're really hoping that you get this card and you really want to have it on Prime in the end game. Next up, we have 2 copies of Noble's Blaster. The +2 attack is pretty good on everybody. Gets Bumblebee to a respectable 6 attack. Arcee goes up to 7. Prime, again, goes up to either 6 or 8. More importantly, though, it's got that green pip. We can search for it if we don't have a weapon, and especially if Arcee needs a weapon. Next up, we are going to run 2 copies of Piercing Blaster. To be quite honest, this mostly is in here for the white pip. But we are also running it because it gets B able to just kind of, we don't care sending him out if we know he's going to definitely get 3 pierce. Or in some cases, if we have to send him out as a car, same thing. He's going to get that 3 damage through there and actually do some work. It's not terrible on Arcee because, again, we are ensuring that she gets a weapon to kind of buff her up and get some damage through too. So against some heavier blue decks, this can help you out. This here is a recent change I made that has been doing very well for me. We're running 2 copies of Energon Slingshot. Obviously, Armed Hovercraft is better, but we only have, out of the 6 modes we can be in, only 1 of them is ranged, so we don't really want to take it. Instead, we're going to go with Slingshot because, again, both Bumblebee and Arcee are melee on both sides. We're running this because I got into situations where I needed a character to die. They had 1 left, and it really, really hurts to waste an entire attack to kill a character that has only 1 health left. So it's there for that. Helps you against bugs quite a bit. It means you don't have to sink 3 attacks into shrapnel. Next up, we are running 3 copies of Matrix. So again, both Bumblebee and Optimus are leaders in both modes. It helps you to buff up your other characters. It gives you Pierce 1 on your other teammates. On top of that, whether you flip it for defense or flip it for attack, it's good. It helps us with everybody kind of having that bold 1 and tough 1 from Optimus. Going to move into the armor package now. We're going to be running 3 copies of extra padding for a couple of reasons. Number 1, if we have a couple in hand and we can put them out there, it's great. In the end game, I've had multiple games where I've got Optimus Prime with 3 copies of extra padding. So now he's at tough 4, and he also has focus 1 to help you filter even more. If we don't want to do that, if we want to make, say, Arcee super tanky, if she's got, even 1 copy of this, and if she has a weapon, she's sitting now at, she has a weapon, she's got built-in tough, she has armor tough, and if Prime is in truck mode, she has another tough. So she's going to be insanely survivable at that point. Or if we've got multiple copies and we can throw it onto B, same deal. Built-in tough becomes a very annoying blocker in that type of situation. Also important is the fact that it's got that green pip. We can search for it, so if we need a character to have armor, it's there for you. And you can collect them to try to get multiple ones in hand, or if somebody already has it, to put another one out there. Okay, and from here, we are running 3 copies of Improvised Shield. So we're running it for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's cool to flip out some double oranges on attacks. And Prime can help you filter a little bit if you do see them, either A, for himself, to find them for the attack, or B, he's giving bold 1 and tough 1, so you can either search for it if you are attacking, or, well, not search for it, but hope that you flip into it, or mitigate the damage by giving tough 1 to give you more flips to hopefully see more blue. On top of that, it does have that tough one. It's not just there to discard to get a green pip, right? So you can also put it onto a character to give them tough one. It is a little bit better though, like if you've got both of these in hand and the green pip does appear that you want to switch a card out for, obviously get rid of it, put it back in your deck, so hopefully you see it on attack later. Those were all of our upgrades. We're going to now take a look at the actions that we are running. Again, we're going heavy blue, so we're going to be running 3 copies of Checkpoint. Every now and then, of course, it's helpful to actually use this. I've had some good plays with it, but equipment and upgrades are pretty important for our deck, so you do have to be careful when you use it. You would like to always be playing a weapon or an armor whenever you have a chance. So it's good to have more copies in hand for later turns. I'm going to run 3 copies of Heavy Handed and also 3 copies of The Bigger They Are. So we have characters at a pretty healthy range of stars. We've got Bumblebee at 6, so these will often be active on Bumblebee. Prime at 11, these will often be active on Prime. And then Arcee is in that kind of like 8-star range that I've talked about before, where depending on what the enemy has, both of these will probably be useful on Arcee. The +2 attack is great. Pierce 4 is even better if you can get it on the right character. Not much more to say, but with 11, 8, and 6, you've got a lot of options. So we're running 3 of each. And obviously a great help if you're facing a blue deck. For removal, I'm going to run 2 copies of Smelt, 1 copy of Vaporize. Smelts obviously have the green, that's great. The downside is that you don't choose what upgrade gets scrapped. With that said, a lot of times enemies only have 1 upgrade out there, so it's great for that. You do want to be a little bit aggressive with it, so even if there's a card out there that it's a lot of times if you're facing an orange deck, a Bashing Shield on the opponent's character, once it's out there, doesn't really, make a difference. However, because our orange is a little bit limited, it does help to lower the enemy's defense. And on top of that, let's say if they build up a little bit more, if you play Smelt later, they can choose to get rid of that Bashing Shield, and now their Optimus Prime has that Ion Blaster, which they're going to keep at that point. So be a little bit aggressive, especially if you haven't seen the second one, if it's not in your scrap pile yet. We have 1 copy of Vaporize. This way we have that targeted removal in case they have multiple ones out there. We are going to run 2 copies of Start Your Engines because if we can kind of save Prime for even later and or get more activations from Arcee, really, really good. Or just make Bumblebee be a stumbling block in case Arcee gets killed. So it's helpful in that way. With that said, it's not essential. This is kind of like if we see it, great. If not, not too bad. I will still win. I've won most of the games that I've played with this deck, and if I don't see this card, I still win. That sounds a little bit cocky. I don't mean it to sound cocky. What I'm trying to say is you don't need this card to win. So it's not quite like orange cars, where like if you don't see Start Your Engines or Turbo Boosters, then you are in trouble. With that said, we are not using Turbo Boosters. The reason why is typically we're going to want to play either a weapon or an upgrade, and playing Turbo Boosters as our, weapon or armor, playing Turbo Boosters as your upgrade for the turn is not ideal because chances are that it's going to lower your offensive output or lower your ability to tank damage, and we need to have both of those to win with this deck. I'm going to now go into like the hand fixing or find the cards you want to see package. 3 copies of Confidence. It's there to help you fish for cards that you might need. We don't have a ton of draw, so there will be situations where like you just have actions in your hand. you play confidence to try to filter in some upgrades, and then you don't play that second action. Sometimes you're going to do that just to make sure that you have enough cards for later, but it does help you find certain cards. There are times that you play that action and it helps you quite a bit, like you get that start your engines, you get maybe heavy-handed onto Optimus, and that seals the deal, gives you the win, whatever it might be. But all Autobots, a great card to have. And then we're going to have our draw package work overtime if our hand does get depleted. We've got this to draw back up to 4. And then kind of like a Hail Mary, we have backup plan. So if your hand does get clogged with Handheld Blasters, backup plan will help you to fix that situation. And also these are white pips. And we have so much bold and so much tough that white pips are good, but we don't want too many. There are 5 total in this deck between these 3 and the 2 piercing blaster. So you'll see them often. Every now and then they will get bunched together and you'll get 2 or 3 on the same flip, and that will feel bad. But I feel that 5 is a good number. Maybe cut it down to 4, but at that point you're not going to see them as often, so you won't get those 2 extra cards as much. Okay. So that right there is our main deck. What I want to talk about quickly here is going to be the side deck. Now, or you know what, before we get there, let me tell you guys about what I think might actually be a stronger version of this deck, which would be, hey, you guys are probably surprised, I'm using Fireflight. So Fireflight is there to keep these 2 guys from being attacked that first turn. Bumblebee, in all honesty, he's there as a stumbling block. But you know what? Why not make it so that they have to go for that third little weenie character anyway? On top of that, gives us a star to play with because Fireflight is only 5. So, I was looking at the different star cards I could use. Universal Network Access was a possibility to be able to kind of get that draw 3, which is great. Was thinking about Leap of Faith just because additional upgrades or actions would be good, but we kind of do have some like rough cards that you might not want to see if that happens. Plus, you know, we don't want to go into too many white pips, so instead we think that we might go for Energized Field because A, double blue. On top of that, we do actually have some oranges in this deck, and we have so much tough flying out there that you're going to probably flip into at least one. So I know nobody has ever, like, I don't know, really used this much, but hey, we'll probably flip that orange and the attacker coming at your character will probably get pinged for 1 damage. So hey, why not, right? On top of that, now you have Fireflight is ranged in both modes, and Optimus is ranged in bot mode. You can take the ranged package and not feel limited by it. So Armed Hovercrafts can come in there, and so can Marksmanship, which I think would be good because direct damage would help this team out a bit. I think this is a little bit stronger, but I don't know. The one I have is so much fun to see people amazed when Bumblebee tanks a 16 attack damage and only takes like 3 damage. It's beautiful. But if you want a stronger version, look into this. Okay. Now, our real sideboard character, though, is going to be Ultra Magnus. So at this point, what's going to happen is, obviously, Bumblebee and Arcee would come out. Magnus will go in. And then we also have enough to be able to use his armor as well. He's a brave character. He's going to protect Optimus. And at this point, kind of like the idea is they have to attack Magnus first if they go first. So we'll flip Optimus. We'll send him out to attack. He's got the built-in tough. Comes back to us after they go. And then we'll flip him to buff up Magnus. We'll send Magnus out there. Boom. And we'll just kind of like trade back and forth. They have to attack Magnus. Then I attack with Optimus. It'll go back and forth, back and forth. I have to give some props to RJ. He showed me running this. I know people have done this too besides RJ. But he actually showed me in person how strong it can be. So that's there. It's good against certain orange matchups that depend on getting their characters to flip, because By having only 2 characters, I learned this lesson at Origins. You have to be careful as the orange player about who you flip and when, because you're limited about what character you can get into bot mode or back into alt mode if they have to be in alt mode. So it's there for that. It's also there for maybe some blue decks that focus on Pierce. Maybe aerial bots. I think this might be a stronger matchup than the base deck if you're facing aerial bots. And then obviously, so the idea here is you're going to take out the melee package. You're going to take out the slingshots. You can also ditch the piercing blasters. You probably ditch the bigger they are unless your opponent is playing a 13 or 14 star character, such as OPBL or the Wave 3 Shockwave. And you're going to throw in a ranged package, so you're just going to throw in 3 Marksmanship, 2 Armed Hovercraft. And then I also, depending on the situation, my other cards in the sideboard are kind of a secret action package. So obviously the Magnus Armor is in there for the sideboard. But we also have 2 copies of Infiltrate. This is going to especially be good against weaponizer decks if they are trying to piece through tyranny, either Fire Drive or Lionizer. Help you turn that off, turn off Supercharge, turn off Reckless Charge, etc. It's going to help you as you take that incoming damage. If they're going with Heavy Bold, you've got Dampening Field to limit their flips. Of note, it's not the Gyro Blaster, so it's your opponent can't flip more than 4 cards during the battle. And then Battlefield Report, just kind of like there to help us stack our deck, hopefully get a double blue, put it on top as we defend. So that's what we got. Now, with that said, there are some cases where you don't have to go to Magnus. So a few times, like if the game is really close, then you can keep the original lineup. And all you do then at that point is you slot these in there to hopefully hopefully you end up seeing them and you can, turn off some of that heavy orange aggression coming into you. So you can sometimes keep this team if it's really close, and these will help you seal the deal. For example, I played against Grimlock Arcee Lionizer. This helped me to win that game. Although so that game went to a third game. During that third game, just as a surprise, I went for the Magnus Optimus team up instead, just to hopefully throw my opponent off guard. There are 2 other things I want to maybe discuss here. So one other possibility, which I'm going to actually try this weekend at a big tournament we have locally, is going to be Optimus Prime. We have 14 left. I'm going to go with Hot Rod, which is going to give us access to the ranged package of characters. Hot Rod is ranged. Going to also try Chromia, because Chromia on the flip, when she is a bot, she can help you draw cards when she defends. And then when you flip into her car mode, you can put an armor out there. So especially because we're going to hopefully, blue armor to kind of specify. We'll hopefully have extra padding. We can throw that onto a character. So that's a possibility. The other benefit to doing that is if we have Hot Rod and Chromia, both are 7 stars, Energon Cutlass is now a possibility, and they can kind of hit out there with Pierce 4. So that's one switch you can do. One other, and this is really janky, but I love it. One other janky possibility that you can do, and I feel a little bit hypocritical because I always make fun of Joe for this. The other thing you can do is you can use thermal weaponry, because this deck can, very strongly get some work out of it. It's great on Arcee because when she has a weapon, she gets bold and tough. So thermal weaponry, in case you don't know it, is when the upgraded character attacks, it gets Pierce 1 for every blue pip that you flip out there. So you flip 2, Arcee gives you bold 1, Optimus grants her bold 1. Chances are you can get to 4 Pierce pretty easily, but you can also get to 5 Pierce or 6 Pierce, etc. Then on top of that, if you have something like either heavy-handed or the bigger they are, you've got 4 Pierce natively, so you can just kind of decimate blue decks out of nowhere when they don't expect it. It's beautiful. And then obviously that card can also get some work done on Prime himself because he also has that built-in bold 1. So he can flip out there, get a bunch of blues, and just kind of pierce damage like crazy. With that said, I took this out of the main deck. The reason why is that majority of the decks out there are orange, so it doesn't really help all that much, even though it's extremely janky, extremely fun, and can get some real work done. Had Arcee swinging out there for Pierce 9, and then on top of that, another version of the deck had Smoke Cloak, so I had some black pips that flipped out too to add on top of the Pierce as well. So I'm going to stop babbling because I'm gushing at this point. I like this deck. It's a lot of fun. Blue swings out there like crazy. You can tank damage like crazy. I'm calling this right now, I forget if I said it to begin with, I call this General Motors because the idea again is General Optimus. We got some cars, motors, etc. You guys know me, I had to give it a name. All right. I know that we've been a little bit slow on videos this week. We will be getting together tomorrow to film a bunch of stuff, so we'll have some stuff in the pipeline for you next week. Don't forget too, we do have a Patreon. Check it out. We do special tokens for our $10 tier. On top of that, Joe is going to open up pretty soon his deck advice tier, in which you send a deck or lineup or team to Joe. He tests it, he refines it, he gives you suggestions. It's a great value for what you get for it. With that said, it will be mostly Joe doing that just because I'm going to be busy when the school year begins. And the other members of Wreck and Rule will obviously help Joe test, but we may not have time for tweaking. But Joe does a fantastic job of that. I've seen it firsthand. Puts a lot of work into it. For the amount on that tier, it's definitely worth it. Enough of me kind of begging for money. Thank you guys for watching. Give this a shot. If you do, let me know how it goes. Have a good day.